That's better. That's good. Still no sound? Still no sound? Hopefully I have sound now. Sorry about that. Always forget to do one thing. Anyway, hopefully the sound's working. I guess I should start over. So, hi, um, Walter A. Williams Jr. here. It's July 29th, 2025. And I'm kind of incapacitated. I've got my arm in a sling. It's been that way for almost 6 weeks. Doctor basically said nothing, I couldn't do anything for like 2 months. So I actually was planning to pitch at the World Horseshoe Tournament this last week. They actually finish up tomorrow, and they're in Sandy, Utah, outside of Salt Lake City. And the finals, they finish up tomorrow, the championship classes for the men, women, and the elder division. The senior men actually finished today, which is the group I had entered, but and the gentleman who won last year, who I used to play with when we were kids back in California in the 70s, he won last year and he won it again this year. He pitched pretty well. I would have had to pitch very well to beat him. So um, the but the men's championship, they've got three guys that are 10 wins and no losses, and the ladies, they've got a very competitive group. I think there's two with no losses and one with one loss, I think, if I remember correctly. And they all finish in the morning. The elder division, they have one player who is undefeated, but the player with the higher average and the defending champion is actually 9 wins and one loss. There's 16 players in each group. They play 5 games a day. They go by wins and losses. And the defending men's world champion is the odds-on favorite to win the men's. The women's group, they've got like 3 ladies that are really competitive. So that's going to. The only unfortunate thing is that they really don't have any video of what's going on, which is kind of disappointing. They do have you can actually watch the games progress. They have the results, which I've been doing, but I would definitely much rather be watching the video and seeing how they're playing and stuff. But unfortunately, they're not doing that. Anyway, let's see. Got a couple questions here. Let's see what we got here. All right. I hear you. Now, PBA Tour going through you, remember me from meeting you at Front Royal, no tap. Front Royal. I bowled terrible there. That was a regional they had back in March, and I just bowled absolutely awful on that. It was just embarrassing how bad I bowled. Remember your appearance on the road to Charles Perrault when you were 13? Um, yeah, my brother's got that clip on YouTube. It's an interesting story. So the on the road crew, which Charles Perrault did that, and he traveled all over the United States, and they actually came out to the World Horseshoe Tournament that year, and um, by the time they got there, we had already finished. The juniors had already finished playing, but the day before the junior competition, I hit my brother, broke my pinky on my right hand, and he ended up winning the championship that year. He pitched phenomenal. It was like his best term of the year, and he pitched very good. But up until that point, he had never ever beaten me. So, and I was pitching really, really good at the time. So it would have been interesting to see how that would have worked out, but it didn't. And obviously wasn't bad, considering I had two of my fingers taped together and trying to figure out how to hold the shoe with the other two and my thumb, and it was definitely an interesting thing. And people are curious about how I learned how to play horseshoes left-handed. Well, that's where I got my start. And then when I was 18, I broke my wrist. So again, I was pitching left-handed, and I thought I should go play a tournament. Anyway, so Charles Perrault, they came out and they interviewed us, and we actually played a little game before him, and I actually beat my brother with my splint on my hand in the exhibition game. They didn't show that, but they showed a couple clips of us throwing shoes and stuff, and then they showed my youngest brother. Well, I've got twin brothers that are my youngest brothers, but the little guy Nathan He was only 7 years old at the time, and they showed the last clip is of him throwing a horseshoe and him making a ringer, and Charles made a comment about, yeah, you might want to watch out for him. Well, Nathan's actually in the championship group in the men's division this year. He at one time he got pretty good back in 1989. He finished fourth at the men's world championship. I finished third. We actually the only year that's been on ESPN, and they had a little step ladder, and I beat him in that game, and then I lost the next game, and then the current world champion won his first title back in 1989, and then later on started winning like almost every year. And since 1994, which was the last time I won the men's championship, Alan Francis has won it every year except three, and he's finished second those other 3 years. And so he is definitely the goat of pitching horseshoes. He is very, very, very good. And unfortunately, the competition is not as good as it was 40 years ago. So he has kind of an easier time of it, but he's still pitching. I mean, I think his average is like almost 87% or something like that. The next guy is like 75%. So he is far and away better. Doesn't guarantee that he's going to win, but I'd say the odds are about 90 plus% that he's going to win. So let's see. Did you bowl against John Handegard many times? No, not really. John was a little older than I was. He was bowling on a senior tour, and then he bowled the one tournament in Washington on the regular tour, and I was actually um, I think I was very, very competitive that year, but he ended up winning that tournament. I don't think I made the TV show. He made it and managed to win the tournament after being on and off the tour for many, many years. And then when he went out on the senior tour and was very successful, I think that gave him a little extra confidence. He came back out on the regular tour, and he's the oldest guy to ever win a regular tour at age of 57. I have bowled against David Ozel quite a bit. Of course, I haven't bowled against him for God 30 years because he bowled on the senior tour, but he only did that for a little while. And I think he enjoys fishing, and I think he does fishing lessons or exhibition, whatever you want to call it, where he teaches people and takes them out to good spots or wherever. So let's see, what else have we got here? Uh, okay. All right. Oh boy, I got a few questions here. Okay. All right. Will you have to reduce bowling weight after you're having shoulder surgery? Well, it's very possibility that I'll have to start with a lower weight. I don't know. I know that's what a bunch of other guys have done. Um, I'll wait and see when that happens. Bowling World needs to see a photo of your trophy case. Have you been able to display most of your awards? Well, I'll tell you what. There's some of them. There's a few more, and there's a few more, and there's a few more, and that's not all of them. That's probably a good. That's I don't know, maybe a third of them or half of them or something like that. I've got a. I've won a few trophies over the years, and then so. All right, let's see what else we got. Hey Matthew, how am I doing? I'm doing okay. How are you doing, Matthew? Do you use lots of surface typically? Typically, I use a little bit more surface than the average guy. My rev rate's a little on the low side, even on the senior tour, and they usually like to put out lots of oil. And it's funny because when I do bowl two-handed, which I do on occasion, it's like, man, I need more oil on the lane. So it's kind of a funny thing, going from trying to get the ball to hook more. And if I go to the two-handed style, it's like, wow, I need the ball to not hook as much because I don't throw the ball very hard two-handed, so my ball hooks a fair amount, even though my rev rate's also kind of on the low side compared to the young guys. Let's see. Well, thanks, Mike. And thanks for the nice compliment there about being a nice guy. Sometimes I am. There's times that I'm not. Don't want to catch me after a bad game or a bad block or whatever. So I'm typically not in a good mood, but I shake it off a little faster than I used to. But unfortunately, I have a a lot more of those these days. Any secrets on picking up the 10 pin? Learn to throw it straight. That's really a simple thing. And then practice it. You got to figure out where you got to stand and where your target is. And then I would say bowl 2 or 3 games where all you're doing is shooting the 10 pin on a even on a full rack. And the thing is if you're shooting at a full rack, you don't want to pick off the 10 pin. You actually want to hit the 6 pin and the 10 pin. So it's a you because if you're just picking off the 10 pin, you only have a little bit of room to the right and you got lots of room to the left. So you want to be kind of in the middle where you can miss a little bit to the right and a little bit to the left. Typically, like if you shoot at the head pin, then it's the only pin there. You want to hit it dead on. So you've got lots of room to the left and lots of room to the right. If you're just hitting it on the side all the time, that's really not the, the most room for error that you're going to have. That's our little Great Dane that we have. You saw in the background. We also have a small corgi. And the corgi is actually bigger than you think she is. She's like 30 something pounds, and she's she's a handle at times. Let's see. Oh, thank you, Matthew. Sorry to hear about the rotator cuff. Yeah, it was apparently I pulled some ligaments or whatever, and so I had rotator cuff surgery. Um, I guess quite a few decades of wear and tear ended up adding up. Jeremy Witt met me back at Erie, PA, back in the days, traveling Morgantown for the PBA 50 next week. Will you be bowling? No, Jeremy, I'm in a sling. I had rotator cuff surgery about 5.5 weeks ago, and doctor said no bowling for about 6 months. So I definitely won't be bowling, not planning to be there. I'm going to be down here in sunny Florida. Well, kind of rainy Florida, actually. But it's actually been nice. It's been actually pretty hot the last couple of days for us. It's been in the upper 90s. So, but I'm inside where it's air conditioned, so it's not so bad. Um, but yeah, I have a good time up there. A great facility. They got a 5-star restaurant, so enjoy yourself there. Get well soon. Thank you. Shot 630 in your league last night. That's not bad. Met you at Time to Spare and Cut and Shoot. Oh, that's down in the Houston area. If they do ban urethane, how would that affect your old black diamond? Don't ever give that one up. Um, I think they would be foolish to try and ban urethane. I think they would have a lot more problems trying to enforce a rule like that because one, reactive balls are urethane. They just happen to have an additive in them. So I think they would have an awful time trying to figure out how to enforce a rule like that. The PBA has a rule and it says urethane like. So they don't even specify urethane, they say urethane like. And basically, it's to see how fast a ball absorbs oil. So their definition is if the ball absorbs oil, then it's not urethane. And so basically, they're saying that plastic and rubber is urethane. So, and if they come up with if another surface gets developed that doesn't absorb oil, but it's not urethane, what are they going to do? And I just, I do not understand why there's all this talk about that. I think if you want, you can say, well, maybe you should ban reactive balls. All these other guys need reactive balls to bowl well. So it works both ways. I don't agree with that at all. Thank you. Seeing you back in April and getting a picture with. Oh, yeah, Mike. It was fun seeing you guys. I was um, happened to go to the Tournament of Champions. I wasn't actually there for the tournament. I went there for the Hall of Fame induction, and they had the tournament at the same time. So I happened to watch the last round of competition. Had some fun down there. Seeing some of the old guys, some of the younger guys. Some of them know who I am, some don't. Hey there, I'm from Green, New York, and you still bowling? I bowl, but 6 weeks ago I had surgery, so I haven't been bowling since, and won't be bowling for another 4.5 months. Thank you for the answer. Met you in Knoxville last year. Any plans to come back here? Possibly. I'm probably going to be doing a lot more clinics and stuff in the future. Unfortunately, my bowling's not as good as it used to be. So, but Might be trying to do that. See, sorry. Okay. Sorry, joined in a little late. Speedy recovery. Thank you for the answer back. You're welcome. Did you ever bolt the Peterson? Yes, I bowled twice. Bowled absolutely horrible both times. I think the last time I had one double for 8 games. I was using my black diamond. I was trying to shape it. I was just, I guess I just should have fired it at the head pin. It just not very good. um, do you ever see Bo Burton or talk to him? I haven't seen Bo in quite a few years. He lives quite a few miles south of me. Excuse me. Get a little drink of water here. Um, and I used to see him every once in a while at PBA events is where I would see him. He would come in and do, maybe a help with the commentating or something, but he hasn't done that in the last few years, and I don't bowl on the tour anymore. So, um, but Bo is a good friend of mine. Is there a chance old sponsors of the past, like Quaker State, Firestone, Budweiser, will come back to the PBA and sponsor more tournaments? There's a chance. Unfortunately, it's not a very good chance. Unfortunately, bowling, to get sponsors like that, they need to be on national TV. And right now, they're, they don't have, the big presence that they did 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Um, so getting a sponsor like that, it's going to take some very good, you know, negotiating and stuff. And unfortunately, people that have thought that, oh, they could sell stuff for bowling haven't been able to do such a good job at it. It's a lot more challenging than people realize. Even though there's a lot of fans out there, a lot of people enjoy watching bowling, but unfortunately, when it's not on national TV on a good time period, week after week after week, that makes it very challenging for the average fans to watch. The people who are really into bowling, they can look it out. They'll look for it and they can find it. But those that are, would watch it if it just happened to be on, and they kind of knew it was on every Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock, like it used to be, 30 years ago. That's a different story. What would be the reason to ban urethane? I think it's a lot of people are basically jealous. They see other guys using this ball and they don't like it and they can't use it, and then other people say, "Oh, it changes the lane and makes the lanes bad." But for the most part, urethane makes the lane better. A lot of bowlers just don't understand a lot of stuff that's going on. So I think it's just a lot of the what we call whiners like to complain about stuff. I think that's a big part of it. Hope everyone is doing well. I agree with you. If USBC bans urethane, that will hurt storm youth bowlers. Yeah, probably. I mean, it's just I don't like I said, I don't agree with it. I mean, I understand. Some people think, well, I mean, I think Anthony Simonson made a post about, that by using urethane, the players today don't learn. The younger players don't learn how to do different things. But you know who uses urethane a lot? Anthony Simonson. So is he kind of talking about himself also? And he's one of the most talented bowlers out there. I trust me, I don't take anything away from him. He is very, very, very good. Um, I just think when you have a super high rev rate, and the lane patterns the way they are, it's that's kind of one of the things that you learn how to do. The other players they like the reactive ball, which gives them more hook, or sanding a reactive ball to get the ball to hook. So it's another tool, and it is what it is. So my shoulders, it's okay. I don't have much. I don't really don't have any pain with it. I just can't. I just don't want to move it very much because like it does. You know, I know it's not great yet. I you it's in a sling. It's in a sling like almost 24 hours a day. I sleep with it and everything like that to keep it from not moving. I only take it out of the sling when I go take a shower. So miss seeing me at Morgantown. Yeah, I'd like to be there. They're good people. They've treated me very well. I've done a couple of clinics there and stopped by and see them. And I was looking forward to bowling there. Unfortunately, my shoulder had other issue. It decided that wasn't going to do that. So, like I mentioned earlier, the World Horseshoe Championships are going on this week. They finish up tomorrow. They start at, I think they're starting at 9 a.m. Mountain Time, so it's 11 o'clock Eastern. Um, and they're going to play 5 games. They'll probably be done in 4.5 hours or so. The it's I just wish that they somehow would have video on it, but you can follow along with the scores. If you go to my Facebook fan page, I have a little link that shows you where you can go and watch the scores if you want. So, do your neighbors know that you are on the Mount Rushmore of bowling? Um, some of them kind of do. How did you get so good with spare shooting? Did that play a big role in amount of PBA wins? Um, I I think spare shooting is a good part of bowling. I mean, throwing strikes is great. Throwing spares is great. I don't know of anybody who strikes every ball. So unless you want to get lots of opens, learn to make your spares. And making your spares is not a super difficult thing. My recommendation is learn how to throw the ball straighter. Most people don't realize how much they hook the ball, so they use a plastic ball or something like that, or even a urethane ball, and they just throw the regular release. But the reality is their regular release is going to hook quite a bit, especially on dry lanes. So um, my my trick is what I say is try to throw your strike ball as straight as you can. And actually, if you can get on burnt lanes that haven't been oiled for a while, and if you can throw the ball straight on that, then you're in the right direction. Normally, what I'll suggest is try to throw a little bit of a backup ball. That's not necessarily what you want to do, but just learn how to negate the rotation you put on it normally. So that's really um, my suggestion. And then you got to practice it and practice where your feet. You got to figure out where your feet are, where your target is. Everybody's a little bit different. Everybody walks the line a little bit different. I do things that are very odd, but it works for me. Um, and for me, I like to throw the ball fairly straight at my spares because I don't have to worry about the lane conditions. So, we bowl on 34-foot pattern sometimes, and sometimes we bowl on a 52-foot pattern. And if I'm hooking the ball with my spares, that's a big adjustment on those spares. So I really don't have to worry about, well, gee, we're bowling on this pattern, we're bowling that pattern, and even from morning to night, the lanes will change quite a bit. So I don't. I just it makes it so much simpler in my game. Now, if you're just going to bowl on a house shot and the lane conditions are always the same. That's usually the big joke I tell when I'm doing clinics. I say, anybody ever complained about the lane conditions being exactly the same? And some people look at me kind of funny, like, and then some people kind of get what I'm talking about. And basically, the lane conditions are always changing. That's part of bowling. And one of the biggest complaints is that the lane conditions are always different, but they're always also always changing all the time. So from the very first shot of the league or tournament to the last game, uh, they're always changing a little bit. So when you're throwing your strike ball, you need to make adjustments to that to get the ball to the pocket, which is a good thing. Move your feet, move your target, whatever it takes. And on your spare shots, if you're throwing a hook, you make adjustments. Well, for me, it just makes it a lot more simple. If I throw the ball fairly straight, I stand here, I look there, and if I throw a decent shot, I make my spare. Problem is, I don't always make a great shot, but at least I have a good idea of what I'm trying to do, and I still have some miss areas, so I can throw a bad shot and still pick up spares. So let's see. Do you remember the reaction of the guys on tour when reactive wrestling first came out? Yeah. Well, it's kind of interesting. The guy invented reactive balls like in early 1991, and nobody used it the whole year until the very last term of the season. I think it was a Touring Players Championship, and a guy, Tony Westlake, who was a very good bowler from Oklahoma, hooked the ball a little bit more than I did, threw it pretty firm, and all of a sudden he's using this ball and it's just hooking off. He's hooking a lot, and we're like, "What's going on?" You know, that was like beginning of December of '91. Well, in January of '92, a lot of people had that bowling ball, and they were really happy. They all of a sudden they had this ball that they could hook, and it was a game changer, no doubt about it. And same thing when urethane balls came out. Now, I wasn't on tour when the urethane balls first came out, but there was a big difference between the plastic ball and the urethane ball. And then later, then there was minor modifications over the years. And the urethane balls today are way stronger than the urethane balls back then, which is interesting because you can't use a urethane ball that was made back in the 80s on tour, which I find kind of ironic because it just doesn't make any sense to me. But anyway, yeah, it was a big thing. It was definitely a big game changer. And the guys that hooked the ball a lot really weren't crazy about it. And then they kept putting more oil and more oil in the lanes. And now it got to be where the rev rates on tour now are so high compared to even what they were in the 90s. Um, and every year the rev rates go up, but there's a pretty good pretty good difference between the rev rates now and the rev rates then. I'd say the low rev rates on tour now are would probably be on the upper end of the rev rates back in the 90s. That's a guess, but I'm probably pretty close on that. And every once in a while you have an outstanding player, like a Jimmy Keith or Chris Warren or somebody who was able to really put the high revs on the ball. But they were more the exception. Where now they're like middle of the road kind of guys, for the regular tour. So, and yeah, it's just been an interesting, evolution over the years. Part of it has to do with like every year the rev rates go up and the balls get stronger and they put more in the lane. More oil in the lane, they want to hook the ball more, so they get balls that hook stronger and the guys learn to hook it more. So it's like been this big kind of snowball effect that it just keeps getting more and more and more. And I don't know where it's going to end. I mean, it's hard to believe that the rev rates are going to get a whole lot higher than they are, but they probably are. It's just, and maybe, in 10 years, it might be the low rev rate on tour is a 500 rev rate instead of 390 or something like that, 360 or whatever it is. And it's just, it's amazing how that progression is. And I got people ask me, well, straighter's greater, right? I'm like, well, not really. If it was, guys would be doing that more. But the better players learn how to do that on certain lane conditions, so they learn how to use the urethane ball, and or whatever else it's going to take, and kind of cut that hook down. But there's a difference when you have a 500 rev rate and you're going end over end, as opposed to a 300 rev rate, where I'm not necessarily. People say I go end over end, but I really don't. Um, and it's just a lower rev rate. It's just not gonna grab the lane as much. So okay, let's see, where am I? All right. Ooh, nice to see you here and get better quickly. Yeah, thank you. It's going to take a while, John. What's your best favorite ball you ever owned? Well, I have to go back to 1993. I won 7 tournaments that year, and the Crush R was really one of my favorite balls of all time. I really, really enjoyed that ball. I don't know if I won 4 or 5 tournaments with that. I also won a ball. I won with a plastic ball that year, and I also won with the urethane ball. So that was after the reactives came out. Do you keep all of your PBA shows you made in a collection VHS DVD? I have most of them. Problem is, you know, I edited some and others and stuff like that, but um, unfortunately, VHS tapes they wear out, and it's hard to even get a VHS machine. I had one, and I don't know what happened to it, and I borrowed one, and I was going through some tapes, and it messed up, and yeah, so it's one thing after another. You've done all things bowling. I live in Maryland, and duck pin bowling is a thing. Have you tried? I have duck pin. I've also candle pin. I have not five pin, which is a game up in Canada, which is basically bowling a ball about the same size as us. Okay, what is? Oh, come on, stop it! What are you doing? Okay, give me a second here. I'm trying to. What is biggest key to how to pick up a 10 pin on a house shot? Well, like I said earlier, throw the ball straight. Learn to throw the ball straight. That's the best thing. And if you need to, try to throw like a little bit of a backup ball. You don't necessarily need to throw a backup ball. Just get that ball to go as straight as possible. Take out that side rotation. and then practice shooting with a 10 pin on your first shot, second shot, first shot, second shot for 2, 3 games. Darn it. Okay. Carolina Lanes was one of your favorite places. I enjoyed bowling there. It was fun. It was a big, huge house in Bowling, New Jersey, and we had big, good crowds there. Um, so I did enjoy bowling. I bowled well a couple of times there. When you first started on tour, was oil pattern just the house shot for that center? No. By the time I came on tour, which was in the early '80s, I went on tour full time in '83, but I bowled a couple tournaments in '81 and a couple tournaments in '82. Still going to college, but they'd had tour lane maintenance since I think the late '71 or '72. So let's see. I was watching an old PBA show today, PBA Senior Pro Bowls, doubles in Buffalo. I think, of course, you were a lot younger. Bowling Tommy Evans, and you was wearing Guppy Troop style pants. Well, they weren't Guppy Troop style, but they were not. They were not typical. Yeah, I had a few funky pair of slacks back then, but they were nothing like what Guppy would wear. I actually had a pair that were metallic looking, and the first time I wore them on TV, they actually kind of glowed. 1987 at Mid Oklahoma. Let's see. Lived close to Peoria, Illinois. Wasn't Landmark Lanes your first show and first title? Yes, it was. I made my first show there in 1983, um, which was a good thing because I had been not bowling quite as well as I was hoping to bowl, and fortunately I made the show there and finished third place, which kind of made my winner. Made my I was able to pay for my expenses and everything and be okay and not have to worry about it because I basically put myself out on tour. Um, and then in 1986, that was where I won my first tournament. Don General from Perrysburg, Ohio was a very underrated bowler. Did you ever bowl against him, and what do you remember about him? Don General was a great bowler. Yes, I did bowl against him a little bit. I don't know how many years he bowled on tour. Um, that we bowled on tour together, probably 5 or 6 years. But yes, Don was a great bowler, um, and good guy. I'd be on the low end now. I started playing down and in after watching you in '93. It helped me out huge. Well, thank you. Do you think us left-handers have a real advantage? At times you do. I hear all the time I have a lot more advantage than ability than my right-handed counterparts. Um, it has to do with, on bowling, the left side of the lane gets a lot less play than the right side, so the left side's not changing as much as the right side. So there's advantages and disadvantages to that. On the tour, they typically try to put out a pattern. They don't put out a symmetrical pattern because normally when they do that, the left side kind of has an advantage. So typically they'll put out a slightly asymmetrical pattern to kind of quote even the playing field out, and that's a real tough thing to do. They just had the senior World Series in Jackson, Michigan, and they had 4 patterns to qualify on, and the first pattern the lefties did absolutely great. I mean, I think 8 out of the top 16 were left-handers. The top 5, 4 of them ended up being left-handed, and a left-hander won. Not a big surprise. So, but then the next 3 patterns, and it wasn't like the ratios were way different, and why the one pattern would play so well for the lefties and the other patterns wouldn't. But I don't think a lefty cashed in the other 3 events, which is actually kind of amazing that it would be that lopsided. And that's really lopsided for no lefties to cash. And because there's a lot of good lefties, and it's a real lane conditions are just a real tricky thing. There's no perfect situation on that, and there probably never will be unless they figure out how to get a lane without any oil on it. Um, but even that's probably, you know, a pipe dream just because unless you want to go to bowling balls that don't have much grip on them, um, the bowling balls today would tear up most surfaces. And that's the original reason for putting oil on a lane is to kind of protect the surface of the lane. So, and they found out that if they put oil here and less oil there, it makes a difference on, how easy the lane conditions are. So that's kind of how that's all. It was an evolution over many, many, many years, and there were some people who didn't really know what they're doing, didn't care. Other people took a big interest in it. So, which sport do you like better, bowling or horseshoes? Well, horseshoes is my first love, but unfortunately, the oh, last 25 years, my horseshoe game has been pretty kind of sad. At one time, I was really, 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 really good. Now I'm just really good. Even though I play left-handed, I'm still just really good. I'm actually a little better left-handed than I'm right-handed. My right arm stopped cooperating, and but I was still bowling all right. So it was kind of odd, but I, I love bowling, and but my first love is playing horseshoes, and I still play horseshoes. There's no money in it. I love the competition. I get more frustrated playing horseshoes than I do bowling, and I get plenty frustrated bowling. Trust me. Um, but when you were used to doing something at such a proficient level, I know I'm older, but my age shouldn't really make that much of a difference. One of the guys that's playing in the World Horseshoe Tournament this year at the men's championship, they have a senior division which is 16 over, and then they have the open men's division. There's a gentleman, I believe he's 83 years old, and I want to say he's in like sixth place right now at the championship. Probably won't finish that high, but he's probably going to finish in the top 8 or 9. And that's kudos to him. I mean, that's just amazing. I hope I'm still walking when I'm 83. And I back many years, 40 years ago, when I won the World Horseshoe Tournament when I was 25 and pitching very well. The guy who finished second was 67 years old, and he averaged 83%. I averaged 85%. It just so I know age isn't really the reason for my pitching as poorly as I do these days. I'm about 65%, 70% on a good day. I'd like to think I could average 70%, but I just keep throwing bad shots. It's just the way it is. Let's go back over here with these questions. Okay. That's some great info. I wondered why the patterns were asymmetrical. Okay, yeah, that's a big part of it. Unfortunately, the one of the companies that does the lanes for the tour, when their very first tournament, it was a tournament of champions, and it was in Reno at the stadium, and the top five were all left-handed. So, and they kind of thought they knew everything about lane conditions, and that just kind of, you know, lane conditions are just a tricky thing. There's no doubt about it. Remember watching the '99 Tucson Open? Was it your greatest year? But that show against Ozio camera angle was really cool, and you couldn't miss. You both were locked in. Cool to watch. Well, thank you. Um, I know I bowled well in Tucson a couple of times. '99, I don't know. I wasn't. I don't think I won any tournaments, so I didn't. So I think I have the record for the most TV finals in a row without a title, not back to back to back to back or anything like that, but over like a 4.5 year period. So I won 3 tournaments in '86. I won 2 tournaments in '87, and then from then till the end of '91, I didn't win a tournament. And I think I had like 24, 25 TV shows in that time period. '88, I had 10 TV shows. I think I led 4 of them and never managed to not win every single time. So and then I finally managed to start winning a lot of tournaments. So I obviously didn't win that tournament, but I did win at Tucson at least once. When your shoulder is healthy, do you still play golf? I don't play as much golf. Even living down here in Florida, at one time I lived on a golf course, and when I did that, it was just easy. Go get my golf cart, go out and play, and I could play I could play really quick. Even with my ex-wife, I'd play a really quick round or play, with the guys in the afternoon. Um, you know, and I probably played 5 or 6 rounds a week, if not more. Hit golf balls, and I got pretty decent. I got down to like a one handicap. I actually played in a couple of celebrity golf tournaments and stuff, and I enjoyed it. Really, I'm very competitive. I like doing stuff like that. But moved from there, and now for me to go play golf, it's such a large commitment. It's like I gotta think, oh my god, I gotta spend basically 5 to 6 hours, you know, because it's 20 minutes there, 20 minutes back, 4.5 hours playing golf, and I just don't have the interest to do that. So I don't play that much anymore. I play probably 6, 8, 10 times a year, and usually I would play more on the senior tour when we're traveling and stuff. And when I was at home, I very seldom played down here in Florida. I would play once in a while, but not really that often. So now I'm probably about a 15 handicap, if that. I'm so erratic because I don't play that much anymore. Who was the one guy you really wanted to beat when you bowled him? I know who you who you will say everybody at first, but what guy was it that you couldn't wait to beat? I want to beat everybody, but they made a big deal about Pete Weber. So unfortunately, when I bowled against him, I managed to win most of the time on TV. Now outside of TV, we bowled each other. I don't know. I bet we bowled each other 400 or 500 times in match play, and I bet we're like 50-50. Bowling, wins and losses against each other because he's a great bowler and I'm a pretty good bowler. So I, we only bowled each other 10 times on TV, and fortunately for me, I won 8 of those times. So um, what are your thoughts on banning urethane? Like I said earlier, I think that's the most ridiculous thing that the USBC could do. I don't agree with that at all. Did you play other sports growing up than bowling or horseshoes, or what other sports you like to watch? Um, I like to play the other sports, but I just wasn't quite physically great at them. I was okay at them, but um, just I, I I grew up playing horseshoes. I learned to play horseshoes when I was before I turned 10, and by the time I was 10, within 12 months, I finished second at the Junior World Championships. And well, actually, about the year after that is when I started bowling. I bowled one year, like 11, when I was 11, 12, and then I didn't really bowl again until I was a senior in high school. But I like to play the other sports. I just wasn't great at them, so I didn't really. I never was on any other varsity teams or anything like that. As far as watching sports, I don't mind watching sports, but I don't get into. I don't have favorite teams. I don't have that mentality. I never understood how somebody could cheer for a team that, in 5 years is going to be a completely different team. But I can see if you like live in that town, I can kind of understand that. If you went to that college or something like that, but people, they cheer for that team because they're local or whatever, and they move away and they're not, they still cheer for that team. I get that, but I just I I don't have that mentality where, oh my God, if my team wins, I'm glorious, and if my team loses, I want to shoot everybody. I don't have that mentality, and I see probably half of America has that kind of mentality, just not me. What's a split that when you leave, you can pick it up no problem? Well, the easiest one's going to be the 3-7, the 3-10, but I'm I'm probably better at making the 2-7-8. Basically, because I shoot it like a 2-8 combination, and I'm pretty good percentage making that. Unfortunately, I don't leave it a lot, but I did have a tournament last May, not this May, but a year ago. I think I left it 4 times in a tournament, which has got to be a record in itself, leaving it 4 times, and I made it all 4 times. Um, so just an interesting thing, but it's not something I'm going to make every time. I know I'm not going to make it every time, but it's definitely a very makeable spare. For someone who doesn't throw a Powerball, is it possible to convert the 7-19 split? I'm guessing it's a 7-10. I don't. Um, the It's more about the making a 7-10. It helps to throw the ball very hard, which I don't know if you call that a Powerball or not, but more speed, because more the bowlers tend to think of a Powerball as more with a lot of rotation and speed. But on your spare shot, you don't need the rotation. So you take the rotation off, and now you can throw the ball even harder. And I never did throw the ball excessively hard, but I've actually made it a few times. But it's been quite a while since I've actually made it. The last time I made it, I left a six spin, so that was kind of funny. Um, so when you get back to bowling, will you bowl one or two handed? I will probably do both, but, we'll see how that goes, see how my shoulder feels and how my arm feels. Is the Teal Rhino Pro in your top 3 balls of all time? Um, no, I'd say well, I my favorite, like I said, was the, Crush R. My second favorite's gonna be the Danger Zone. After that, I don't know, I it's hard for me to say because nowadays, you, like, use a bowling ball for a little while, and then it's like the next greatest thing's coming along, so there have been so many bowling balls that I've used in the last, god, 25 years, it's ridiculous. So, and I don't keep my old bowling balls that I won with or anything like that, so I can go with those 2 balls. A 3rd one, I really, I mean, what I've been using this last year, I really like the Vaporize. I haven't won any national. I didn't win any big tournaments with it, but I like the ball. So, so what are you gonna do with yourself if you can't do the sport that you love anymore? Well, eventually that's gonna happen one day. Probably. I mean, I've been watching a lot of bowling lately, and I've been laid up. I can't really do a whole lot. I've been watching lots of TV, watching a lot of series and stuff. Didn't realize there were so many foreign series that were actually decent to watch. What's the hardest thing to learn when develop your two-handed game, and what sort of layouts do you like? I'm not big on layouts. I guess I'm kind of like Pete Weber in that. Um, Even though I got a degree in physics, and I know it makes a difference. To me, it's the guy throwing the ball and what he can do to it makes a bigger difference. The shell, that's the biggest thing, and then the layouts do make a difference. But to me, the shell is the biggest thing that's going to make a bigger difference on what's going to do with the ball. Um, for me, bowling two-handed, I learned how to do it a long time ago. I couldn't even tell you when I first tried it, 2010, 2011, something like I honestly don't remember my first time trying it. I managed to do it without falling over, I guess. And then I tried it again and tried it again. And then I kind of started doing it at the end of a tournament when I wasn't bowling very well to kind of like take the pressure off or whatever, or I was so frustrated, I didn't wanna break things or whatever, if that makes any sense. So I was trying to have some fun, and, and then finally and every year I'd say, "I need to do that more, I need to do that more because I don't hook the ball much, and everybody on tour hooked the ball so much." And then finally, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago, I finally decided to actually practice a few games two-handed, and I remember I bowled 3 games, and that was it, and then the next day, my bicep was actually sore, like, 'cause, I was trying something, and actually put some effort into it and stuff, and then I started bowling league, and when I was bowling league, I decided, I'm just gonna bowl two-handed in league just to try to have some fun and get a little bit of practice at it. So, for the most part, I bowled league two-handed the last how many years, except 1 year. I I pulled a groin muscle several years ago, and the year after that, I decided not to bowl two-handed just because I knew it put a little bit more stress on my body, and I thought, I really don't want to pull that again. And after a year, kind of healed up pretty good. So then I started bowling two-handed again in league. Do they have as many different oil patterns when you bowled PBA? Well, back in the old days, they didn't have names. So yes and no. They probably had more patterns, but a lot of it they used a spray gun. They used a bug sprayer and a big old moppy kind of thing, and they'd spray it and push the mop down and push the oil down and stuff. And so technically, the lanes are probably a little bit more different because how they did it. You'd say, how can they be exactly the same lane to lane? They were pretty similar. They weren't exactly the same, but they were similar. So it was not a it it wasn't like they were absolutely completely different, but, every once in a while you get on a lane and the lane would be a lot different, sometimes it had to do with the actual lane itself, sometimes maybe the nozzle got clogged up or something, or they didn't pump they try to do the same thing every time, but, when you're doing something like that, a little bit more human error kinda comes into play. The machine, typically is a little bit more accurate. However, the machines can mess up. I know the ladies tour had an issue with that a couple of years ago where, it didn't oil the lane or something like that, or didn't oil it very well. And, it's when it's kinda like computers, they're really nice when they work, but when they mess up, boy, they can really mess up. So, and I know I've been to bowling tournaments where, the guy pushed the wrong button We were practicing, and I think they put the house shot out, so they had to re-oil the lanes, and or you know, it's just amazing how stuff like that happens. So it's not just you know that. So they didn't have, but the thing is back then they didn't have names. They just oiled the lanes and said, okay, it's gonna be. They'd say however many feet it was. I don't even think they said how much oil they were putting on the lane. But I do know they used way less oil way back in the day, back in the 80s and 90s. I mean, way less oil. I mean, you're talking probably a quarter of the oil that they used back then as they do now, maybe less than that. What was the biggest money incentive that was offered to use something on TV show? Well, most of the time I was on staff, so I had a contract. But my first good contract that I had, well, after I had my really good year in '93, they didn't want to pay me anymore, and I thought, well, that's kind of silly. I mean, I can make just as much. I can actually make more money, you know, by not being on staff, and that made no sense to me. So I actually didn't. I was actually not on staff for almost a year, and I used to like a different ball every week. And I think I made like 14 shows in that year using different balls every other week. And so a lot of those TV shows incentives were like $10,000 to make a TV show if you made the TV show. Um, my contract that I had with Brunswick later on was even better than that. So let's see. Is someone subbing for you while you convalesce? Well, I'm not in a league right now. This is summer. I didn't bowl a summer league, and a couple I was going to bowl with in the fall. I'm assuming that they're going to get somebody else to bowl with because I probably won't be able to bowl till December. So I'm not sure what my status will be on leagues for this winter. Probably will be subbing a little bit. Might be able to join, at the last half of the season or something in January or something. I don't know. I'm not that worried about it. I like bowling, but it's not super, super important, but it's fun. I like bowling the leagues with the people around here. They're good people. How long are you out from bowling? I bowled the first time in 4 months since my quad bypass surgery. Felt good. Only averaged 180, 165 for 4 games. Only 20 pounds of my normal, I guess 20 pins, I guess. Um, I'm supposed to not bowl for 6 months. So that's what my doctor says. Hopefully it's not gonna be longer than that. Let's see, where are we? Okay. Ah. Do you have a person you hung out with most when you were on tour? Um, Back in the '90s, I hung out with Mark Williams a lot. We used to play golf together, me and him, and then later on Tim Chris and Phil Ringener. Um, they were also RVers, and I had an RV at the time too, so that kind of helped in that regard. But we used to play a little bit of golf with those guys. Um, let's see. Thanks for giving us the opportunity to chat. You're welcome. No doubt. It's very cool that he does this. Thank you. Do you have an opinion on string pin bowling yet? In this crazy question, have you ever thrown darts or axes? um, String pin bowling. I'd like it to be a little better than it is. There's a there's a pretty good difference between the sanctioned string pins and the recreation string pins. Some people don't understand that. But even with that, I would still like to be some more modifications with the string pins. But I don't know if that's ever going to happen. As far as throwing darts, I don't really throw darts much. I remember back when I was a teenager, I threw darts a little bit, but it would actually hurt my top muscle here, the bicep or whatever, and because the way I threw it, so I don't really want to bother my arm that much, so I just didn't really do it. And then axe throwing, I've done it a couple of times. It was funny because the one year they were showing it, and I was like, well, "This is really kind of odd, axe throwing, and you're gonna have people that get drunk, and you're gonna have axes. That doesn't sound like a good combination." But I know that there are places that have it, and I guess people enjoy it. I've done it a couple times. I did it at the Bowl Expo, and the guy, actually threw it underhand. So, oh, you can throw it underhand. So I did that, and I actually made like 4 aces in a row doing it underhand. It was kind of a freak. But my wife had us. do that a couple years ago, and as a fun thing for a bunch of us. And I was okay at it. You know, again, emotion is kind of overhand normally, and it's a little bit different. Not that I can't do that. I mean, I was never going to be a pro baseball pitcher, but in little league, I could throw the ball pretty decent. I mean, not speed wise, but I could hit it over the plate, so I was semi accurate. I just didn't have the speed, so obviously it wasn't going to be that very effective. Okay, where are we at? Let's see. What would typical PBA pro average on a typical house shot? A high average in my local bowling alley is 242, the fountain ball. He's a lefty with a lot of power. It seems awesome for a non-pro. Yeah, 240 to 250 depends on the house, and maybe even higher. Some houses are just going to be higher scoring. The problem is a lot of league shots aren't really the kind of shot that pros like to play because normally there's just too much friction. Um, the guys that are on tour are very, very good and they could figure out how to do whatever they need to do. But the problem with the house shot typically is too many times if like for a right hander, if I miss right, it's going to end up left. And if I miss left, it's going to end up right. And that is so frustrating to see that over under reaction. And I see that a lot. And I bowl, well, like I said, I bowl league and I bowl two handed, and I get that all the time. And I was using a plastic ball to try to combat that. It's still overreacted, and using an axe, which is a very, very, very low reactive ball. It hooks less than a urethane ball, um, and just because the lanes hook so much and my two-handed release, I don't have the ball speed that I need. But probably wouldn't have hurt me to practice that bigger hook, to get kind of used to that look. But yeah, it really has to do with the lane conditions. Every house is a little different, but yeah, the better pros are going to average 240, 250, or even higher. Most people are probably going to average about 30%, 30 pins, maybe 40 pins less on a sport pattern than they are on a house shot. That's just, it's not exact, but it's, you know, take you and your friends that go to the USBC Nationals. That's a sport shot, and I don't know if it's tougher than a tour shot or not. It's probably pretty close, So, but most people have a lot of trouble. And this year, I guess they played a little bit challenging. I didn't bowl. I got injured. I was supposed to bowl, and then the week before I was going to bowl, my injury got really bad, so I didn't bowl. Um, Probably a good thing because I don't like to embarrass myself. Let's see. Is there a certain core cover stock you prefer when it comes to ball choice? Nope, I'm not that picky. Um, I'm bigger more in the cover stock. Like I said, that makes a bigger difference to me on the ball. The core definitely makes a difference also, but the cover stock is going to be the, the major influence. Do you have a favorite bowler that you would just like to watch play? I like watching the guys on tour. I remember meeting EJ when he was about 18, and it's just kind of funny that he lives in a town, or he grew up in a town that one of my good friends playing Horseshoes was from Huntington, Indiana. Mark Siebold, he was a two-time junior boys and two-time men's world champion, and so I've been playing Horseshoes against him since 1970, and I just happened to notice this kid from Huntington, Indiana, and I watched him throw the ball. And I'm like, oh my god, he throws the ball phenomenal. So I love watching him. I like watching all the guys, Jason Belmonte, Kyle Troop, who I bowled against in regional tournaments, and it was funny because he originally, he's bowling two-handed, but he's throwing it so hard and fairly straight for two-handed. He basically played the same line as me. It was crazy, and just throwing pins everywhere when he did that. And I'm like, well, when he learns to throw the ball, he learns to get a little more hook in that ball. Man, he's going to be dangerous, and he is. And then there's so many other good players. I really do like watching the young kids play. They're very talented. I think they're totally underappreciated and underrated. Let's see. Do you have any hobbies outside of bowling and horseshoes? Um, I don't know. I like board games. I got hooked on playing this one game called Terraforming Mars. My sister and brother-in-law introduced me and my wife to it, and I got it on my tablet, and I played all the time on there. I like board games. I used to play chess a long time ago. Don't play much chess anymore. Um, I used to fiddle around with programming and stuff. I don't do that much anymore. Um, Back in the 80s, 90s, advertisement for pro-ams was more than now. I bowled old pro-ams that I could. Now at 75, still bowl and do local tournaments. Well, I think it also has to do with where you're from and the area and, how well they promote it. Unfortunately, I think that's the other part. I think sometimes they don't promote the pro-ams as well as they could or used to. But I'm not, I don't travel around. I don't necessarily live in the areas where they have the tournaments, so I don't see, what kind of promotions they do. I do know the tournament here, they try to do promotions here, but the previous owner did a lot better job, but he was involved in running tournaments for God, 40, 50 years. Let's see. What do you think of Mark Baker as a bowling coach? I'm here in Southern California. He has helped me a lot. I like his no BS style. Yeah, it's funny, when I first was going to get ready to go on tour, I didn't think I was the best bowler in Southern California. I lived in Southern California at the time. And there was this young guy, Mark Baker, who wasn't on tour yet, but I mean, in the local tournaments and stuff, he was one of the top players. Now, there was a couple other guys that were from Southern California who were already on tour, and like Warren Nelson and Alvin Liu and a couple other guys, and but Mark was very good back then, and we kind of went on tour about the same time. Um, he and I think he managed to make a show before I did, and then I managed to win before he did, and then he won the week after I won. It was kind of an odd. It was an odd show. I had an issue. One of the guys on a TV show was using a shoe that was leaving residue on the approach, and when I got up for my 6 practice balls because I led the tournament, and my first shot, I actually fell down and I went over the foul line. And I'm like, oh, this is not good. I basically was walking to the line when I threw the ball that game. But I have a lot of respect for Mark. He's got a good eye. He's a very intelligent guy. He was a great bowler back then. Unfortunately, he had back problems and stuff, so his career was shortened because of that. But um, since then, kind of straightened up his life a little bit, and he's become one of the best coaches in the world. Walter, I picked up the 210 recently. Well, good for you. The Crush R needs a re-release. Wouldn't bother me, but the problem is usually when they can make a ball, it's really not the same thing. So it's hard to tell. And it might be that ball was only for the amount of oil they were using back then too. I don't know. I seen you wear a brace on your left knee. Is it preventative only, or do you have a problem with the knee? Um, so basically, I've been wearing a knee brace since 1999. I was bowling. We had the tournament in New Jersey that year. We had an unusual format that year. It was I don't remember the exact thing, but it was like qualifying games, and then we had a cut to the top 48 or 32, and then we had a cut to the top 16. But it was all, pins were carrying over, and it was round robin match play and stuff. And we got to the top 16. I was actually leading the tournament with 16 games to go. I was in good shape in making the show. That morning, the last 16 games, it was like somebody was stabbing my knee with a knife, and I ended up finishing 16th in the tournament. And a couple weeks later, one of the guys, Mike Miller, said, "Try a knee brace." And so I got a knee brace, and um, I went later on, went and saw a doctor, and he's like, "Yeah, you should lose some weight." Now, I'm not a huge guy. I'm 6'2". At that time, I might have weighed 200 pounds. Um, so I'm not excessively overweight, but he's like, "Yeah, you should lose some weight and stop bowling." And I'm like, "Well, let's see. I was just player of the year 96, 97, 98. This is like spring of 99. This guy's telling me I should stop bowling." And I'm like, I don't know. Maybe you should stop being a doctor." But yeah, I never had knee surgery. Um, I wear the knee brace now for preventive maintenance. I wear it all the time. When I'm wearing slacks, you don't see it because it's under my slacks. When I wear my shorts, like when I bowl league or bowl in local tournaments down here in Florida, you'll see the knee brace and people, oh, what's wrong with your knee? I says, well, it's actually pretty good. It doesn't bother me. I can probably bowl without it, but it doesn't bother me to bowl with it. So it's kind of like preventive maintenance kind of thing. So um, let's see. I got it to the right of the two, and it got the 10. Okay, Dakota, I don't know how you did that. The the 210 is the 2 pin's on the left side and the 10 pin's on the right side, so if you got it on the right side of the 2 pin to make it, you'd have to bounce off the wall to get the 10, but, did you ever beat Arnie Goldman? Didn't really bowl against Arnie Goldman much. He bowled a little bit on tour when I was first out on tour. He made a couple of match plays, but, he wasn't a regular cash or match play guy, but he was a good bowler back then. Have you made the 210 before? I have made the 210 before. Um, you throw a Brunswick Rhino. That's a good ball. In your days on tour in the locker room, did you guys ever play any card games to pass time? If so, who was the guy trying to take other bowlers' money playing cards? Um, actually, there's a rule. There's a PBA rule that you can't play cards or dice or basically gamble when you're in a bowling center. So when I came on tour, there was nobody doing that in the locker room that I know of. That might have happened, but not while I was there. But I know that some of the older guys, they used to play a lot of cards and stuff, but they would do it at the hotel rooms and stuff and play amongst themselves. So they weren't doing it in the bowling center. I concur. House to sport, average around 225 on house, struggle to hit 180 on a sport. My accuracy needs improvement big time. And that's what I tell people. I say, when you're bowling on a house shot, basically you learn it's okay to make a bad shot because you can throw it here, 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 and it still goes to the pocket because you're getting help from the lane condition. So you're not really improving as well as you could if you're watching if you really want to improve, bowl on the toughest lane conditions you can find because that's going to make you throw good shots. Because if you're bowling on a flat pattern and you miss to the right, it's going to go to the right. I don't care what kind of ball you have or how much hook you throw it or whatever. Your ball goes to the right, it's going to go to the right. And if you tug it, it's going to go to the left. Or if you miss left, it's going to go left. You miss right, it's going to go right. Right-handed, left-handed, doesn't matter. And that's going to make you a better player bowling on a tougher pattern. And the problem is too many bowlers, their egos can't handle that. They want to have that quote easy shot so they feel good about themselves and feel good about having a big old average or whatever. But that's not going to make you a better bowler. You might think it's a better bowler, but the reality is you need to learn to make better shots. And I'm just as guilty as that as anybody else because unfortunately the conditions we bowl on typically are kind of on the easy side. Some are not super easy, but even the PBA we can bowl on 3-to-1 ratio, which is not a lot. Some people think 3-to-1 ratio. Oh my God, that's going to be like a house shot. No, it's not. Not even close. But even still, it's a 3-to-1 ratio. A 1-to-1 ratio, way tougher. So yeah, bowl on that tougher lane conditions can make you a better bowler. Let's see. Just saying hi. Hope you are well. Hope to see you in a sweeper soon. Quick question: what type of pitches do you use, and do you have a relaxed fingertip or stretched? I You're not going to see me in any sweepers soon. I'm kind of on the disabled list. I had rotator cuff surgery about 6 weeks ago, and the doctor said no bowling for 6 months. So that's that. As far as my pitches, my finger pitches are away and to the left and to the right. So, and you know, what is it? 15 years ago, I was having issues with my arthritis in my hand. It's hard for me to move up my hand, but I basically can't make a full fist with my right hand. I can with my left hand, but my right hand I can't do that. My forefinger doesn't want to bend at all. My forefinger is probably a third of the size bigger than my left hand forefinger. At the arthritis, I got it all my knuckles. Anyway, so I'm bowling that summer tour. I was player on the regular tour that year, and I'm bowling the senior tour and the practice sessions, and I'm like, oh my god, my hand is just killing me. It's like taking me all of 15 minutes to sort of loosen up my hand a little bit so it doesn't kill me, and I'm like, I'm considering not bowling anymore because it's so painful. And a couple guys, Del Warren and Paul Figlini, helped me out and shortened my grip. My my grip now comes to would be this knuckle, but it's full fingertip, so it's a very very relaxed fingertip grip. Um, and I can't even imagine trying to throw a ball from before then. Um, it just 'cause like I said, I've got arthritis in my fingers. The arthritis is not super painful. At one time, my pinky was actually pretty painful, and I actually stopped shaking hands for the reason. Um, but I have there's a little bit of pain in my hand, and it's hard for me to make a. I can't really make a full fist. I can make a three-quarter fist. I can squeeze my three fingers. I'm doing it right now, but my forefinger, it goes to like I can bend it to like that. That's about as far as it wants to go. So, um, where are we at? I like the challenge, but I can't lie. It's frustrating. Yeah, that's what I say. I mean, I get it. Bowling on a tough lane condition is challenging, but it's going to make you a better bowler. How many 710s have you made? I think I've made 3 in competition. A long time since I made it, 25 or 30 years. The last time I made it, I left a 6 pin, so it didn't count, you know, I had a 6, 7, 10 shooting at it, and I actually picked up the 710. I'm like, "Really? Thanks for doing it." "Oh, you're welcome. I bowled with you in '91 at Santa Anita Bowl. You were a real gentleman. Appreciate you, my friend." Well, thank you. Santa Anita Bowl. Boy, I'm trying to remember that. I must have been at a regional or something. My hand pitches are 388 away in the middle and 588 away in the ring finger. Oh, and yeah, and my thumb is basically a zero pitch, but I have a little bit of pitch. I have a mold in my thumb, but when I drill the actual hole for the thumb, it's got zero pitch in it. So how nervous were you first time meditate? I was nervous. I still am nervous. If you're not nervous, there's something wrong with you. That's my opinion. Um, but I was very nervous. But fortunately, I was able to kind of channel it the right way. I shot 269 my first game on TV. Uh, got a couple of breaks, and my opponent had a couple of bad shots. I went on to the next game and bowling against a guy by the name of Malacosta. I needed a double in the 10th frame. If I double in the 10th frame, I beat him, and I ended up bowling Earl Anthony. Unfortunately, I left a ring in 10 and didn't get to bowl Earl Anthony on TV. I did bowl against him in match play a couple of times. I couldn't tell you. I would have assumed he beat me more times than I beat him because I was just a rookie at the time, and he was Earl Anthony. Let's see. Got a couple more questions here, and I think we'll wrap it up. Okay, let's see. All right. Okay. Boy, it was a. All right, great stuff. Quickly recover quickly. Take care. Thank you. Hope speedy recover. Thank you. Been there, tore it twice. Did you have a favorite ball when you were on the 900 global staff? Um, well, I did manage to win a tournament. I won my last tournament. Well, I guess I actually won 2 tournaments that year using the global 900s. So I was actually player of the year that year, 2009, 2010 season. And the sad part is the next year, Global 900 didn't product register, so I had to get a new contract with a new company. I thought that was pretty sad. Um, didn't realize I was laid up. Wishing a speedy recovery. Thank you. Get better. We need a 6-man Monday nights at Liberty. I'm not going to go all the way down to Liberty. Thanks. Did Fancy stop bowling? Yes, she did. She had frozen shoulder a couple years ago. She was actually a very good bowler when she was young. She actually got inducted into the San Francisco Bowling Hall of Fame when she was before she was 30. So she didn't bowl much on the ladies tour. She bowled, juniors and some of the local women's stuff. But she ended up getting a good job, and only competed part time. Um, and then actually worked for AMF corporate in the late '90s and early 2000s. And then she got kind of frustrated with some things with AMF corporate and stopped bowling for about 14 years. Then she started bowling again, and I happened to meet her at one of the senior tournaments, and we kind of got together. And She was actually a pretty good bowler. How did Taylor Lanes rank as a stop for you? I enjoyed bowling there. I mean, bowling most of these places, I enjoyed it, especially, like some place in Detroit where we had good crowds, and the DiBiase's were very good people, and the other family that was, I'm trying to think of their name, um, that they were partners with. Unfortunately, they split on not great terms, but they treated us nice, had great tournaments, and I had a couple of not so good tournaments there. I had one of my worst tournaments there ever. I think I had 4 blocks in a row where I didn't even average 195. And then I won a couple times there. Won a couple of big tournaments there. Do you know if Alan Francis, the horseshoe chip champion, ever tried bowling? I don't know that he has. Maybe a tiny bit. Do you see Mark Baker or Dave Houston? No, I saw Dave a year and a half ago somewhere. I think maybe at the Hall of Fame or something like that. But trying to remember, I remember seeing him, but yeah, I don't get a chance to see those guys much. I live in Florida. Dave's up in Portland. Mark's down in Southern California. I'm more of a Zen 25 guy by 95 than 900 global. That's your prerogative. Good evening, Walter. Just rewatched A League of Ordinary Gentlemen. I love the part where you win and holding trophy. Then you're showing that same night scraping ice off your RV. Thank you. Yeah, that was at Taylor Lanes. The finals weren't at Taylor Lanes, but the qualifying was at Taylor Lanes. And an interesting thing, I've told people about that. The League of Ordinary Gentlemen, great documentary movie. Another great documentary movie is called Pin Gods, which was made in the 90s. And I'm also in that. And then there was a mockumentary where they made fun of the League of Ordinary Gentlemen. I tell people this all the time. It's a great show. It's only about 25 minutes long. My suggestion is watch the League of Ordinary Gentlemen and then watch Any Given Saturday Afternoon. And it's about 25. And they make total fun of that documentary. They make total fun of me. And even though they make total fun of me, I thought it was hilarious. And my recommendation is watch it. But Pin Gods, very, very good documentary movie back in the 90s. And then League of Ordinary Gentlemen, which, they both of those documentaries follow the tour, show you kind of what's happening. Things are a little different now than they were back then, but they aren't, you know, the ones in the 90s, that was, kind of the heyday. That was kind of the last few years of the heydays of the PBA tour. So, yeah. Okay, what else? Oh, and the thing about my RV that was kind of funny. It was a brand new RV. It was probably 6 months old, and that week it had been rain and snowing and raining and snowing, and there was 4 to 6 inches of ice and snow on the top of my RV. Well, it's got the slides in it, so I couldn't get the slides in, so I had to get out there on top and scrape it off so I could get the slides in, so I could get back down to back down to Florida where it was nice and warm. Have you ever had back pain? Yes. I'm 6'4". Okay. Uh, Carolyn Doran Ballard. When you feel, where'd that go? Ah, another question. Okay. When you feel as if you are not bowling your best, is there one specific thing that is usually the issue? Um, Unfortunately, lately, my biggest issue is probably pulling the ball, and then I overcompensate and I throw the ball too far to the right. But I would say my biggest miss the last 15 years is tugging the ball, and that's really been a frustrating thing for me. At times I still bowl decent, but I would definitely say that that's the biggest my biggest miss is tugging the ball, and even on my spare shots, I do the same thing on my spare shots, and it's very, very frustrating. Part of it may have something to do with my arm swing kind of got out of whack. I used to do a figure eight in a backswing, and now my swing kind of goes in the back, and instead of getting behind my back, which is where it should be, it kind of stays out there. And so when the ball comes by my leg and ankle, it's about 5 inches from my ankle. Where back in the 80s, I used to clip it once in a while, so lose a little bit of leverage. And I don't know if that's the reason why I tug the ball as much as I do. I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But I definitely know that's not where it should be, but it's, it seems like that things like that happen over time, and it's hard to correct some of those mistakes. So when that's one of the things I'm thinking about when I start bowling again is trying to work on that to get my swing lined up a little bit better. Hopefully, by working into it, I can hopefully correct that issue that I had. So, who's your favorite bowler? Me. I like watching everybody. I mean, even back, before I came out on tour, um, I I loved watching all the guys on TV. The name players I really enjoyed. I mean, when I first came out on tour, the big three: Marshall Holman, Mark Roth, and Earl Anthony. When I didn't make the finals, which was more often than not, I would watch the match play and stuff, and I would watch those guys a lot. Um, let's see. Who's your favorite bowler from Naples, Florida? I don't know anybody from Naples, John. Are you from Naples? Okay. Trying to think. How come the bowling wristband is outdated? Is that because it lowers your rate and the lanes are different these days? Well, okay, so the original reason for the wrist device was to help support the wrist so it would be, quote, in a stronger position. Back in the old days, and that's kind of how I learned to bowl, and that's what I do. My wrist doesn't really move a whole lot. My wrist stays pretty firm the whole way through the release. That's not how guys bowl these days. They do that what they call the yo-yo release, where their wrist goes from that strong cup position to that position at the point of release. So if you've got something that's keeping your wrist this way, it doesn't allow you to go this way, you're not going to get the benefit of getting that. Now it's going to get you in that strong position, but it doesn't give you the extra release that you're going to get that you want to get that higher rev rate, which is what the tour player. So you're not going to see any tour player who even wants to even think about using one of those wrist devices, which is kind of ironic because several years ago they passed a rule that you can't use one of those on tour. I'm like, nobody's going to use one on tour, So I mean, you get a couple of seniors a bowl, a couple of ladies a bowl with them. I'm like, if you're that worried about them using it, boy, I don't know. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, trying to get through all these questions. Let's see. How are you doing post surgery? I'm doing okay. It's going to be probably another 4.5 months before I bowl. How do you feel about being awarded a retroactive title, making you the first to ever win a title on Extreme Pins? Congrats, my friend. Thanks, Dennis. Like I mentioned, I have never been officially notified from the PBA that I've got that title. I've been told by people. I've been even told by a PBA official, a regional director, but I've never had any official notification from the head office about that. But yeah, that's nice. That I never understood why it wasn't sanctioned in the first place. Everybody was bowling on the same stuff. I didn't understand why is that. Is straight still greater? At times, but most of the times probably not. If it was, guys would be trying to throw it straighter, but they aren't. Bowl with you in the 90 walk. Let's see. How many bowling balls does a typical scratch bowler in house shot need? Probably 4 would be enough, and that's probably maybe 1 too many. You need spare ball, a low hooking ball, maybe a urethane ball, maybe a low reactive ball, and maybe a high reactive ball. Something that's going to cover your bases. Other than that, move your feet a little bit, move your target a little bit. You know, um, and that should kind of do it for most tournaments too. It's not, you know, I think the bowlers today rely way too much on bowling balls. Um, but I grew up in a different era um, where I'm more apt to use a bowling ball. My worst blocks are the ones that I got to use 6 or 8 balls because nothing that didn't work, that didn't work, that didn't work, that didn't work, that didn't work. And the reason why it doesn't work is because I'm not throwing the ball the way I need to. You know. So, yes, if anyone has not seen Pin God's Watch, it is a low budget but is really good. Yeah, I recommend it, and again, any given Saturday afternoon, very funny. Alright, you guys have a great time, and I'll talk to you later. Thanks. Let's see, how do I stop this? Interesting. Not seeing how to stop this. Okay. Oh, well, I guess I could hit this